Hello, today we're going to learn about Erikson's 8-stage theory of psychosocial development and social emotional development. We'll start with Erikson's 8 theories. This one is trust versus mistrust. It starts at age 1 and goes up until age 2, which we'll see on the next screen. Its virtue is hope, and we'll find out about the virtue after we've gone over the positive outcomes, but I did list it up there at the top. So it's just kind of a quick, easy way to see that. So trust versus mistrust is children look up to their parents, caregivers for reassurance and to feel safe. So when they're crying, they learn that their parent either picks them up and holds them and tries to soothe them, or unfortunately, sometimes they don't. And that's obviously a negative outcome. The positive outcomes for this stage are developing trust and a sense of security with their parents and caregivers. The negative outcomes, so mistrust, negative outcomes would be suspicion, fear, and mistrust. So the virtue here is hope. The child has hope in developing trust. The next stage 2, is autonomy versus shame. It's about 2 years old. Children should be able to safely explore their environment in an encouraging way. The positive outcomes are the child feels independent and is developing good self-esteem. So its virtue is will. It has will to want to succeed. Negative outcomes is inadequate, so they start to have low self-esteem and start to feel negatively about their abilities. The next stage 3, is initiative versus guilt. It's ages 3 to 5. A child will start asking a lot more questions, and adults should not criticize them harshly. This is that why this, why that. Sometimes the why questions are funny, sometimes they're annoying, but this is a stage. The positive outcomes are the child will have a sense of purpose. They're learning about their world. That's why they're asking so many questions. You would too if you all of a sudden popped up in a new world that you were learning about. The negative outcomes is guilt, sense of inadequacy, lacking initiative, drive, and lack of purpose. So that's unfortunately if the child, sadly abused or anything like that. Parents like yelling at them when all they're doing is asking a 3-year-old question. The virtue here though is purpose. Child will have a sense of purpose. The next one is industry versus inferiority. It's ages 6 through 12, and it's a big stage. It's when the child will develop greater self-esteem and will want to gain approval from others. Positive outcomes are the child starts to feel confident about achieving their goals. Their virtue is pride. Negative outcomes, the child will feel inferior and lack confidence. Identity versus role confusion. Ages 12 through 18 years old, a child wants to feel that they are included in society. They may re-examine themselves during this time. They are able to explore other possibilities. The positive outcomes are they establish their true identity, and the negative outcomes are rebellion, unhappiness, and not sure who they are. So a child's really trying to establish who they are as a person, how they're going to go into this adult world. And they do this by exploring through their identity. The virtue is fidelity. The next is intimacy versus isolation. It's ages 18 through 40. The person shares themselves with others in order to find love, explores long-term relationships and commitments. The positive outcomes is that it can lead to good relationships, and the negative outcomes are isolation, depression, loneliness, and unhappiness. The virtue here is love. So this is a big portion of most people's lives. It includes, the time typically when people will have children, although nowadays people can definitely have children past 40. But it is typically the time that people will have children, start a family, get married. Well, it's definitely a long time too. It's about 20 years, 18 through 40. So you've got a big chunk of time that your life is during this amount of time. The next is generativity versus stagnation. It's ages 40 through 65, and its virtue is care. The person establishes their career and may settle down to have a family. The positive outcomes are they begin to develop a sense of care for others, and negative outcomes are the person feels stuck and unproductive. This is what's could be known as the midlife crisis. And if you don't know what that is, that's when a person, they usually say it's a person about the age of 40 or so, 45, and it's when they may be like, okay, what am I doing with my life? Like, am I happy? Am I successful? Am I doing what I want to be doing for the rest of my life? So this person may freak out if they're realizing that they're not. Go buy an expensive race car, go on a vacation, something. But that's typically what's known as, sorry, now I just totally forgot the term of it. Midlife crisis. There we go. All right, so then we'll go to the next one. Integrity versus despair. This is ages 65 plus. So this is what my parents are in right now. Their virtue is wisdom. A person starts slowing down and living life as a retired person. My parents love their discount, their senior discount. They contemplate back on their lives and reminisce in older memories. My grandma does this. She has a memory box that she keeps that she goes through pictures, letters, things throughout her life that have a good memory for her. They start to feel that their life was productive or unproductive. Positive outcomes are they feel that their life was productive and they have wisdom to offer others. The negative outcomes are a person feels unproductive and may feel guilty for not accomplishing something in life or having regrets. They feel dissatisfied. Now we'll move on to social emotional development. This is defined as a child's ability to establish positive and rewarding relationships. It's both intra and interpersonal processes, so inside and outside processes, establishes and maintains relationships, self-regulation, and develop empathy towards others. So it's kind of like how we grow as a person socially in our social lives, which is a big part of the human experience. Responsive caregiving. The key to healthy development of a child is responsive caregiving. Infants regulating their emotions and developing a sense of predictability and safety. So this is an sad example of this one would be like children that grew up in like a third world country that say we're at like an orphanage or something like that, didn't have people that held them because they thought that that was bad for some reason. So this person is on the way end of the spectrum of non-responsive caregiving, unfortunately. Emotional security. Actually, I'll go back. So a good example of good responsive caregiving would be a parent or even like a babysitter family member who's really responsive to the infant, is talking with them, even though they're a little baby, they're still giving them feedback, facial expressions, all that stuff. So they're definitely there responding to the child and their needs. Emotional security. This is establishing a close relationship with adults, and it gives the child emotional security. A child needs reassurance that they are safe, for help in regulating their emotions and for encouraging them. So this is when it's like the age of like 2 years old, when a child kind of really needs their parent and to have them tell them it's okay. Actually, there's probably no age limit for that one because my parents still provide emotional security. But it's definitely when the parents are there for their child. Affective. This is relating to moods and feelings. The caregiver or parent and the child will self-regulate and communicate through their expression of emotions. They develop empathy towards each other, so they have good communication. Temperament may influence the child's expression of emotion. The child learns communication and emotion regulation when it communicates with its mother. The child and adult are participating in an effective communication. So they're participating in the good communication from what we learned from the slide before. Temperament. You may hear this word when they say like, oh, that child has like a wild temperament. It might mean that the child displays, lots of energy. Or they might say mild temperament, so it might be that child that's really quiet, that you almost don't even notice is there. The next is emotion regulation. It can be heavily influenced by culture. It's interrelationship of emotion, cognition, and behavior. Adults can assist children by being good role models and providing them with emotional support. So it's giving feedback to, your child, whether they're smaller or teenager, having that good relationship and showing them what good emotions are, or even if it's like a negative emotion, showing them kind of how to, work through their feelings and talk about it, stuff like that. The next one's impulse control. It helps a child adapt to social situations and with following the rules. It's acting according to social expectations and not participating in hurtful behavior. When a child has to wait, that's really tough. That's why they say children, it's hard for them to have impulse control sometimes, let alone if they have something like ADHD, where it's literally almost impossible for them to be able to control some of their actions. Can be learned through play and sharing with others. One factor that contributes to a response is the child's understanding or lack of understanding of a request that is made of them. So that's if the child understands, like if an adult's asking them to do something, if they're just like, what? Somebody's asking me to do something? Or if they know, okay, this is what I need to do, I'm going to go do it. The next is empathy, responding compassionately to another's distress. It creates a culture of caring. It's feeling what another person is feeling or knowing what another person is feeling. So it's kind of like when some people see really sad movies, so they'll start crying too. That's me. But yeah, so it's like empathy. You're kind of like feeling it as if you were that person or as if you were there. Self-efficacy. This is feeling competent and able to succeed. A child will develop this through play and exploratory behaviors. Sounds kind of self-explanatory, but self-efficacy. Sense of self. Infants and children develop their sense of self through relationships with their parents, caregivers, family, and teachers. Young children develop a sense of self when they respond to their own name and can name the members of their family. The child starts to have their own preferences and characteristics, so they're developing who they are as a child, as a sense of self. Social understanding. This is related to experience with communicating with adults regarding the thoughts and emotions of others. It's how to engage in social interactions, social competence, interpersonal sensitivity, awareness of how the person relates to others in the world, and what to expect from others. This is useful in our crazy world because it's like, how do we have this interpersonal sensitivity when the world is so wild and people's beliefs differ? But it's just about having that awareness. It's also which scripts are to be useful in which situation. So it's that example of like, okay, this is a situation where I am at a diner or a restaurant or something, I expect a certain thing to happen. I forget what the term is right now at the top of my head, but it's kind of like putting a frame to an experience that you've already had, and I really am bummed that I can't remember the word right now. But that is it for our presentation. Thank you for watching, and have a great day.